What is going on, all you wonderful A-Plusers out there? It is I, Stuart, here, once again, with another review for you, this time on Star Trek Strange New Worlds season finale. But this time, it is not just going to be me reviewing the episode today. I actually got someone joining me today from SceneNNerd podcast. We got Will. Thank you so much for joining us, Will, for this season finale. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Stuart, for having me. I'm really looking forward to talking about the season finale with you.
Yeah, it's exciting. I've never got to talk to anyone about Star Trek before on the show, so it's definitely going to be really exciting for sure. So I guess we'll start with the very beginning of the episode. So we start with Captain. Oh crap! I am already screwing this up because I completely forgot her name. I believe it was Patel, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
Patel.
Captain Marie. Yeah, Patel. Marie Patel. We actually just learned her first name last week in the penultimate. Yeah.
That was the first time her full name was said. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, we see her kind of helping out a planet that's basically kind of getting set up. It's a Midwestern kind of themed planet because, you know, it's kind of a nod to all these older Star Trek episodes where some of the times the planets would be based on whatever set Paramount has available for the crew to use, you know. And we get kind of something similar like that in this episode. And things are going good, it seems. And Nurse Chapel's even helping out for a little bit. And suddenly, when Nurse Chapel gets beamed up to her ship, we see that the town is suddenly under attack by the Gorn. The Gorn have returned after being hyped up for quite some time from the previous season. So, you know, some really cool looking visuals here. Something I kind of thought we were going to get, but we'll definitely get back to later on is when Nurse Chapel was beamed up to the Enterprise, or not the Enterprise, but to Patel's ship. I was kind of assuming because we had like all these things going on with the town with signals being cut out, because we even had like a scene where Patel was talking with Pike like on the data pad, but then that signal got completely lost. I kind of assumed she was going to get kind of stuck mid-transport, and that was going to be how they were going to bring her back later on. But something else kind of happens, which we'll kind of get to. But pretty solid opening. Something I'll also say too that got me kind of worried when we got into this before even watching the episode, the runtime, because a lot of the episodes this season have been like over an hour long, and I was definitely worried when I saw that the season finale of all episodes was actually the shortest, running only 53 minutes in. Did that stick out to you or anything?
It did. I was like, oh boy, hopefully I get a Marvel situation here where they try to do too many things at once. But it was a good finale. I thought, like as you said, the way they set it up, a lot of the old tropes as far as being in a small town village, you know, definitely some homages back to the original series Star Trek. But whenever that ship came out of the Gorn ship came out of the sky, I was getting some like Independence Day vibes. or even Nope, if you've seen that movie with Jordan Peele had last year.
Yeah, with a flying saucer that turned out to not be a flying saucer. Yeah. Oh shoot, I just spoiled that. Something I also love. Something I also love. It kind of played on a trope that I absolutely really love it in a lot of these type of movies where we're focusing on one thing, and because at first it's a shuttle coming down, so we're focused on that for a bit, and so we're thinking that this lieutenant that Patel is talking to is just like not paying attention until we realize that the reason is because he's looking at something completely different. We cut to a different shot of the bigger shit like coming in. I absolutely love that moment. Something I also forgot to kind of bring up is that we do have the thing with Pike and Patel like talking to each other on the data pad, and you know, it is, I gotta imagine like having a relationship like that between the two of them when it's like not only like majorly long distance, but also, you know, you're having a relationship with someone who you know you're going to lose like in the next like upcoming several years. I imagine that's definitely not easy to pull off. But one thing they do really good in this episode, just from the beginning, and then when we get to see more of them later on, I really do think the chemistry between the two of them was stronger in this episode than it's been in the past. Not that it hasn't been good in the past, but I think they really hit it really well in this episode.
I agree. I think that's just been a critique of their relationship this season, and that it just, there was no seeming to be natural chemistry between the two of them. But I think and even in universe, they even make a note with Pike, busted out into songs. Like, it's like have it. It's nice not, every 10 minutes not to start singing a song. So I think that episode, yeah, even though this is an episodic trek and not necessarily serialized, I've called it on my own reviews serialized. With the characters, not necessarily with the overarching theme of the season. And I think that was nice little nod to like what had happened in the previous episode whenever he referenced that, and also I think it showed how they've had that breakthrough in their relationship.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Speaking of serialization with the characters, there is something I do want to kind of bring up later on when we get to the Nurse Chapel and Spock bit later on. But I do think that you're spot on with that. The plots and story are very very episodic, but when it comes to kind of the character development, it definitely feels like something you gotta watch, everything that's happened before in order to really know why the characters are where they're at currently. Yeah. So getting to the next part of this, so we get to a distress call, and that Battelle is able to send out, but it's a very weak one. And unfortunately, the only ship that's able to catch it is, of course, the Enterprise. And because the Enterprise is, or the Federation is currently at this like kind of moment with the Gorn, where it's essentially they can't really declare war with the Gorn, and they don't want to for obvious reasons, especially because they're still like kind of recovering from the Klingon War. But it's this shaky relationship where they're trying to stay out of their territory, but even though that this was like kind of unclaimed space, it's also unclaimed on both sides. So it's like even though the Gorn are attacking there, it's not like they're attacking Federation space. They're attacking just space that was just up for grabs. So because of this, the Enterprise has to go there, and they don't really get any real backup there. And in fact, like when they do arrive, there's a very clear message that the Gorn sends to the Federation, and the Federation like kind of relays back to the Enterprise, basically saying there's this specific line that they are not allowed to cross. Putting basically any captain, I feel like, especially when there's, someone that they know down there on the surface. And even if it's not someone they know, the fact that there's innocent civilians, down there on the surface, it makes it a really hard call. Like, do you follow orders, or do you, take that big risk of, kind of breaking the orders in order to kind of, stick by your own principles, help those that need to be helped. And something that, Pike, we've seen in the past, like not only in this show, but also in Discovery, it's a line he's willing to cross if he feels that he has to.
Yeah. It was interesting how they set that up. It was clearly to try, obviously from a storytelling standpoint, they were really trying to just wrap up the tension with, of course, the Enterprise again is the only ship in the area that can like respond to the situation, and really, this Gorn threat has been sort of hanging out there all season, and there've been references to it throughout, and we finally it comes to a head with this colony, and it's like you said, it's right outside the Federation boundary, and the colonists are like, well, if we join the Federation, we're going to put a big target on our back, and so he had all these elements swirling in there, and it really did set up a situation, and I don't want to jump to the end but there was how Pike dealt with it at the beginning of the episode versus how things sort of ended. It was it was one of those things where I was just like, well, at least when it first started out, where we did sort of jump right in, and April even questions him, like, no, Chris, you're not doing this because of Battelle. Is you're not going to lose sight of the overall mission. He's like, no, Admiral, I'm not. So you're right. I mean, he definitely does have that willingness to let's figure out a way to get these, find out what happened to the Cayuga's crew, find out what happened to the people on the planet, but let's try to do it in a way that we don't end up kicking off a war, which my orders are very clear. Don't start a conflict.
Mm-hmm. And I think the way they go about it was incredibly clever, like using the debris of the ship in order to
Mhm.
kind of maneuver their way onto the planet. And I love how they even pay off, something from a previous episode with Ortega really
Yeah.
wanting to finally
Yeah.
get to go on a ground mission and finally
Yeah.
having her chance. Now, okay, so I do have a little bit of a nitpick before
Okay.
we even get to that, but when we find out that the Federation actually has like kind of plan for the Gorn, like they have weapons specially designed for it, and the weapons specifically are labeled 31, like Section 31.
Mhm.
I guess I have a nitpick, and I'm wondering if you can kind of help me with this one.
Yeah.
But it felt like when you go back to the episode from the original series,
Yeah.
where the Gorn are introduced, to me, I always got kind of the vibe that the Gorn were not very well known.
Yeah.
And even though that we've seen the Gorn in Strange New Worlds before, it always kind of felt like, okay, you could kind of headcanon say that there was no proof at the time. Like
Mhm.
all we had were the words of different Federation people. So it wasn't necessarily confirmed, well known in the Federation about the Gorn. But this kind of confirms that they do know about it.
Yeah.
So it is kind of funny, like that, in the original series, there's the implication that they've never heard of the Gorn before. But what do
Yeah.
you think?
Yeah, funny enough, actually, in as dumb luck would have it, I was watching Pluto TV last night. It's a streaming service, and Arena, the original episode in the original series where the Gorn first showed up, was on, and I was watching it very carefully, knowing what we were going to get tonight with with the finale, and I don't know. I thought I was trying to figure out like is there a line or something within that original series episode that I could latch on to like basically justify the retconning that they've done with the series. And the only thing I can figure, at least in universe, that may work is that I think certain events in this time period have, due to external manipulations, whether it was the when you think about like Enterprise, for example, you had the temporal time, the temporal wars, as far as messing with the timeline. You had Lon's thing with Khan, pushing that time, the eugenics wars, up a little bit. So I'm just wondering if like somewhere along the line something happened that either caused them to forget by the time that they go to Cestus 3 in Arena, where they forgotten about the Gorn, or if Cestus, and I have or it could be one of those things that Cestus 3 is like in another part of the galaxy that maybe the Gorn migrated to, and maybe in universe is part of the reason why they didn't necessarily recognize that it was the Gorn in Arena, even though clearly Starfleet knows about them in I guess this is 2259, 2260, and Arena was like 2265 or so, first season of Star Trek original series. So that's the only thing I can figure in universe. Maybe the Cestus 3, where the original series episode happened, is in a different part of Gorn space that maybe the Federation hadn't encountered them out there yet. Because that was one of the things too. I think they did note that part of the galaxy outside of Cestus 3 was uncharted. So that's the only thing I could figure.
Yeah, I think I'm just hoping that they don't kind of pull the same thing that they did in Discovery. Not that I minded it too much. It was what it was. But if they keep relying on that whole thing of, oh, we're just not allowed to ever talk about it, if they keep relying on that in order to have an excuse for why it doesn't get brought up in future Star Wars or Star Trek, Star Trek seasons, to me that's just a really kind of lame way to go about it, to my opinion.
Yeah, and really, given that the way this episode ended, I mean, it could, and when we get to season 3, whatever that is, hopefully they'll get, with the strikes, it's going to be at least a year, maybe more. But and maybe when we get the resolution in the next season, we will, as you said, I hope it's not the Discovery method of like, this whole thing's under wraps, and because it just doesn't make sense that you have Spock there and who was present, and you can use that line of, oh yeah, we can use that story trope once, but I don't want them to use that as a device to like sort of get out of jail free card as far as like breaking canon.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's like you get one of those. You don't get to do that again.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we get to the planet, and so we find that the Gorn that are there were mostly just the baby Gorn, and apparently it's their strategy. They use the baby Gorn in order to just kind of like, well, I forgot how they put it, but like to kind of thin out the planet or something like that.
Yeah.
And I do like this because it gives them an excuse to kind of go with a completely different design, one that kind of, resembles a little more of the xenomorph design. And it kind of, it also lets them have a little more of a kind of horror vibe with the episode going on, not just like on the planet surface, but even like in a later scene, involving Spock and Nurse Chapel. But I do like they pick up human signatures. And when they get to where it's coming from, we see that's not coming from actual humans, it's coming from a device. And here, I thought it was going to go a completely different way. I'm like, oh no, they're walking into a trap, and they were, but it wasn't one set up from the Gorn. To see that it was actually getting set up by Scotty, like the moment I heard the Scottish accent. So, funny story. I was watching this episode on the bus on my phone, so the moment I heard it, I actually kind of jumped a little. And, thankfully it wasn't like it was packed, so I don't know if anyone saw me or not. But I was definitely, I couldn't hold in my excitement when I heard his voice. I'm like, it's Scotty.
Well, my wife and I both did the same thing. It was as soon as he spoke, it was like we were both Scotty, and no spoilers. I mean, I had successfully made it through the day, even surfing on Twitter or whatever, not getting spoiled about anything in this episode. And it was a welcome return, because of course we did hear Scotty's voice in the alternate timeline ending at the end of season 1. But to see him in person, live action, in this unit now, and how they introduced him, I was like, okay, I like this. I like where they're going with this.
Yes, I absolutely loved it. Very, very much the Scotty from not just the original series, but I also got a lot of, Simon Pegg vibes from this guy as well. Loved just like his whole thing of like when he was escaping the Gorn, and the story he was like kind of telling on how. And I feel like, it's a good thing that it was Scotty, because if it was anyone else, if this was just like a one-off character that we were getting introduced the episode, the entire time I would have just been like, that sounds really sus. That sounds too convenient. But because it's a character we all know and love, we don't have that like necessarily going on in the back of our heads. We don't have this idea of this guy, seems kind of sus, Absolutely.
There were plenty of I did too. There were plenty of other places where plot armor was at work here, but at least with Scotty, it made sense.
And speaking of plot armor, so I love and also just found this, really kind of hard to believe at the same time. But I loved the way Uhura and Pelia come up with a way to shut down the signal. The way they found where the signal was coming from, I totally bought. The way the two of them were able to come up with a plan, totally bought. It's okay, but the part that I was like having a little bit of a hard time believing, and I know it's Star Trek, it's sci-fi, there's probably a million explanations of how they were able to, figure this out. But it's like it's coming from such a small signal on a planet that's even like hasn't even turned all the other way. So it is kind of amazing to me that they were able to calculate exactly where to send the debris in order to make sure it crashed at the right moment. But I did think the plan made sense. Sending debris down to the planet so the Gorn wouldn't think anything of it. They would just think, it's debris doing exactly what debris is supposed to do. And then, using that to wipe out the signal. Now, maybe there might have been a better explanation of how they were able to calculate it like perfectly, but to me, it just seemed kind of hard to believe that one rocket like on the ship was able to perfectly pinpoint it. But I did really like that. I loved visually. I loved the way it was shot, like with Spock going onto the ship to set it up, and then I even really loved Okay, so I feel like this is a recurring nightmare that I feel like everyone has had at least once, but that moment where it's Nurse Chapel inside and
Hmm.
she's like trying to bang on the window so Spock can hear him, but of course there's no sound because it's outer
Yeah,
space. Like I feel like that's a
yeah,
fear everyone has had at some point, a nightmare that someone has had in their life. So like to recreate that and then to add even more tension by having a Gorn there, that whole scene with Spock and Nurse Chapel like on the ship trying to set up the rocket and then also like trying to escape with a Gorn there as well. What do you think of that? Because I was on the edge
yeah.
of my seat.
Yeah, it was. I like. Okay, I guess this is probably the one part of the episode that did. Well, it stretched my suspension of disbelief quite a bit. One with the first one was Chapel. Like of all these people on the Cayuga, she's the one person who managed to
Mm,
survive. So I was just like, okay, plot armor, get it. But yeah, that really just stretches my suspension of disbelief to the edge. I definitely agree with your point on agree with Uhura and Pelia. I think it was. I mean, it was. It's one of those things where they do enough technobabble to like get you there, and either it's Star Trek, and you just have to if you just have to buy it basically. They have enough tech babble there to like get you to that place, and then of course you have Spock like, well, I'm the only one who can do it, and I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, all right, fair enough, you can do it, but it was a beautifully shot scene, and it reminded me a lot of Into Darkness whenever Kirk and Khan were like zipping through the debris field to get to the dreadnought in that movie. But but the yeah, like I said, and then the resolution, the fight in the on the Cayuga's bridge with Spock and the Gorn and Chapel, it was well choreographed. Thought it was beautifully shot. Right before we recorded, I was able to listen to part of the Seventh Rule podcast on there. They had Chris, one of one of the producers, and he was talking about that scene, and it was actually a mix of both visual effect and practical effect. So the Gorn,
hmm.
there was actually there was an actor that did the old-fashioned practical effect, and then they enhanced it with the visual effect. So one of the things I'm always a stickler of is over reliance on special effect, and you can really. And I was, even while I was watching the episode, I was like, this is really, I was really impressed by that look, and after him confirming that it was indeed practical effect with that scene, even the tail and everything else, it made me appreciate that scene much more.
Yeah, it gave me major like Alien 2 kind of vibes,
Yeah,
even like kind of Alien 1 vibes as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
But yeah, going back to the Nurse Chapel thing, totally agree with you. I did think it was like weird that she was the only one to survive, and I think there was such an easy explanation of how they could have done it. Like I said in the beginning of the episode, the signals were being blocked the
Hmm.
moment she was getting beamed up to that ship. So they could have very easily just had it written so that she was in the middle of being transported but
Yeah,
never actually got beamed up, and then boom, Spock could have probably checked there because he
yeah,
didn't see a body there or something like that. It just seemed like it would have been really easy to have an explanation of why she was the only one alive, but they didn't take that route. They instead just kind of went the like you said, plot armor kind of route. So yeah, that is definitely, it was a very beautifully shot scene, but yeah, I definitely can't deny that felt way too convenient that she was the
yeah,
only one who survived.
yeah, yeah. It did, but it is what it is, and also I think it was they did need to follow up, you know, what's happened with their relationship throughout the season,
Mhm.
because because whenever we are left with Spock and Chapel at the end of the Subspace Rhapsody, they're broke. She's broken up with very public. He is just you know done with emotions. That's what when it made sense. Like, okay, this is why in the original series why they're so icy with why he's so detached with when Chapel's around and all. But again, I'm glad they didn't drop it. I'm glad they didn't. And that's one of the things that I do like about this show is so many times in stories, it's just like a bottle. Things happen in this episode, and then you just move on. You don't deal with the ramifications of what happened in the prior episodes. But here in Strange New Worlds, they really do like follow, as I said, as we talked about before. Even though there's no like serialized like through line as far as like like we've seen in Discovery or even Picard, there is still we do see our characters. We don't forget like little bits of their of things that they've addressed throughout the season. Even like even thinking back to like thinking about Pike and Patel and him getting that little talisman on the in the episode with among the Lotus Eaters with the little medallion. I mean, he was like, after she they lost transmission and stuff, he was like, holding that thing. So it's like those little things like that, and that's why I'm glad they did, even though it was a very convenient way. I'm glad that they had that moment where Spock did go to the Cayuga, find her, and at least didn't leave things, at least they were able to like get back together from the sense of like him rescue pulling off her ship, and then he was trying to talk about it, but then she was just like, this is not the time. Mm-hmm. So there's still more there, but at least they're like, it was a signal to all of us, like, we're not dropping this. We're going to continue this story, and we've gotten past the will they or won't they. So now that it's happened, now we're going to deal with the ramifications of it, and especially given that we know later she's going to leave the Enterprise and go with go do the Fellowship of Corby, and later get engaged to Corby. So there's still a lot of things that has to take place before all that happens.
Yeah, and all right, so one more thing before I get to the very last, kind of bit of the episode, but we, on the surface of the planet, we do see, one thing that happens, as they're working with Scotty, in order to, I believe they're trying to, what was it? They're trying to, get the shuttle running, but like be able to hide the signature from the Gorn so they can get everyone safely back to the Enterprise. But we find out here that because there's a Gorn that's there, ready to basically attack them. Now the Gorn is like ready and seemingly about to kill Captain Patel, but then stops and then walks away. Now here's what I thought was going to happen. I thought the Gorn was actually being smart, realizing that he could kill one of them, but not all of them. And so, survival instinct, like, I'm just going to leave instead. But no, what it actually turned out is that Patel had actually, much like the xenomorphs from Alien, I feel like I've been making so many Alien references in this review, but it's hard not to.
It's hard not to,
but she's been impregnated by one of them. So there is a huge time-sensitive issue going on with her, because we don't know exactly. They say it's probably going to be a day or two, if I'm not mistaken, like 48 hours, I think they say. But it's still also not necessarily certain, and we definitely see it getting worse by the end of the episode. But luckily, when the signal drops, seemingly everyone's able to beam up to the Enterprise. And I remember at this moment thinking, oh, wow, they actually wrapped everything up really nicely. I wonder how much time is left. And then it was at this moment I actually accidentally hit my phone and realized, wait, 1 minute left? Oh, wow, they're going to have to rush this last bit. But then that's when the line comes in that not everyone from the ground team beamed up to the Enterprise, and they aren't on the surface anymore, meaning that they have been beamed up by the Gorn. Now, the thing I love about the crew that was all beamed up by the Gorn, the thing I loved about who they chose is that these are all characters that did not appear in the original series, which means as far as we're concerned, they are all red shirts at this point.
Only Mbenga did.
Oh, he did. My bad.
Yeah, he appeared in 2 episodes, I believe. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I definitely stand corrected there. But a lot of the other,
Sam.
What's her name? Sam. I don't believe
Sam was already
up here.
Yeah,
Huh?
Sam was yeah, Sam appeared, but he was dead. So,
Yeah. And then same with Ortega,
yeah,
not in the original series. So I
no,
do love that there's a lot of tension here because we don't know what exactly their fates are going to be at the end of
yeah,
the episode because of this. And so to end it on such a big cliffhanger where they've been taken and suddenly more Gorn ships have arrived, and then
yeah,
also reminding us about the eggs,
mhm,
inside of Captain Patel. And then at that moment, Starfleet orders them to essentially retreat. And Captain Pike is forced to kind of make a decision right then and there on whether or not they are going to attack the Gorn or, retreat. And then we get that cliffhanger,
yeah,
something very tense, very much reminding me of, I think everyone's favorite cliffhanger from Star Trek The Next Generation,
yeah,
very, very tense situation. I just thought it was the perfect cliffhanger to end on. And, I know that it's going to be a while because of the writer strike going on. But wow, we are
yeah.
definitely in for a really big opener for season 3 when it comes around. So overall, like for me, actually, before I get to my overall thoughts, was there anything I missed in this episode that you wanted to bring up?
No, I think we hit all the major points. We were talking about Pike there at the end. I was wanting to ask you, did you feel that he was being a bit indecisive? I mean, I just the
Oh
way it
yeah.
was. Yeah, I mean, okay, yeah, because I yeah, well, I alluded to that earlier. I didn't want to get to that, but considering at the beginning of the episode where he was like going in, and then now he just like I don't know. Is it too strong to say he froze or? But he definitely was indecisive. I don't know if froze is the right word, but yeah, you're right though. It definitely it's not quite best of both worlds. I mean that cliffhanger is like gold standard. I mean
Mhm.
you can't like top that one. But it was definitely for this young series first cliffhanger. It was definitely good, and it definitely worked, and it just goes in the theme of what they've been doing all season, which is just like swinging for the fences, with every type of genre thing. I think the only thing we haven't had this episode was actually we did a procedural law enforcement with Una's trial, so we've hit like
Yeah.
we've hit just about like all the TV tropes this season.
Yeah, for sure. Going back to the whole thing of Pike kind of freezing up, so it could be like one of two things. Like the one thing is that you get a lot of moments where people have like that dramatic pause, but it's not
Mhm.
necessarily supposed to be like that's actually what's happening. It's like sometimes it's just there for the audience, but like in universe, it's probably like a split-second decision, but we just see it dragged on because it looks cooler.
Yeah,
But I don't think that's the case here, and the reason is because I think they kind of made it very clear in the season finale of the previous season is that while Pike is extremely good when it comes to being a diplomat and everything
yeah,
like that, when it comes to talking down enemies and trying to find that common ground, when it comes to the military side, when it comes to like the battle strategy kind of side
yeah,
of him, he's good. Don't get me wrong, but he's not Kirk good. He's
yeah,
not like on the same level as Kirk. And I think that's what they really wanted to show in this season finale, because we
yeah,
saw like in an alternate timeline, if he was the one in command, during their first run in with the Romulans, things would have turned into a very different direction.
yeah,
So I think that's what they were going for by showing him hesitate at the very end. They wanted to make it clear that he is not quite as like, rash as Kirk. He's not like as fearless and as fast to decide as Kirk would be in that
yeah.
situation.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I had forgotten about that, that how the first season finale went, and that's a good juxtaposition between him and Kirk, and also yeah, I think you're right. It definitely contextualizes how he acted in this finale.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, like you said, I wouldn't like say it's as good as best of both worlds, but you could definitely tell that that's what they were going for. They were
Yeah,
definitely trying to give you that kind of a cliffhanger. And I think in like kind of a modern sense of them trying to kind of recreate a similar feeling to that, I definitely think they did a really solid job, and it's
yeah,
definitely gotten me really hyped up to see what's going to happen next.
definitely. definitely. Yeah. And especially, and one of the things you also noted how the 4 people who did get taken by the Gorn, I mean, with Mbinga, Ortegas, Lon, and Sam. I mean, that is, you have 4 solid supporting characters who all, who've had interesting arcs this season, and interesting bits of episodes, whether they carried full, where they were the focus of the episode, like in Binga and Lon, but like as you said, Ortega, she finally got her moment. She's been dying to go on an away mission, and once she goes on, she gets captured. And of course, Sam, he, even at the beginning of this episode, he talks about like the last time he encountered a Gorn, he was afraid, and so now he's getting that chance to, he's going to be captured by them, but he's also xenoanthropologist, so he gives him an opportunity to study them. So I think, so when we get to them in the 3rd season and seeing them how they try to escape from their situation and deal with their situation, I think it's a good quartet of characters that were captured, and we'll get to see even more. So when Boimler said, Ortegas is a war hero, is he referencing the Klingon War, or is he referencing the conflict with the Gorn? I mean, so we get all all those kind of things that that we'll see with them. But you're right, Ortegas and Londo could be like the 2 red shirts, but I don't see them going anywhere anytime soon. I hope not, at least. Yeah.
Let me actually like clarify. Like, I don't think any of them are going to die, but I do think that because of who they chose and them not being like, big characters in the original series, it adds to that tension. It adds to that possibility. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, of the 4, I mean, the 2, sadly, that we don't want to we're going to freeze our women, but as far as that trope, I know that was a commentary on, I guess, Secret Invasion. Whenever Maria Hill was killed, it's like, some franchises have a bad way of treating their female characters, and I don't want Star Trek to fall into that trope.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure it's safe to say it won't, but but the tension is there, and I love it. So yeah, overall, if you were to grade this episode, what letter grade would you give it?
I would give it a B+. And the reason why I'm downgrading it is because I can't get past that the scene with Chapel. That's the only thing that keeps me from giving it A-. But other than that, I thought it was a very, very solid episode.
Yeah, I think I'd go with the same thing. I'd probably give it an A-, but I do agree there were a few plot conveniences here and there that definitely stopped it from being a perfect episode. But overall, just really enjoyed it. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us. So if people want to reach out to you or follow you on social media, or your show, SceneNNerd Podcast, tell us how they can do that.
Yes, you can find me on social media. I'm on all the socials, but primarily use Twitter for most of my geekdom. But you can see it there. Will and Pulk's my private handle, and SNN Blur Trek is where I have all my Star Trek stuff. And then our main channel is at SceneNNerd. We're also on Instagram and Threads at @scene_n_nerd. And we have a website, www.scenenerdpodcast.com.
And I will definitely be making sure to link all of those into the description down below, so you guys can definitely check out SceneNNerd Podcast. But yeah, of course, at the end of the day, guys, these are just our A+ opinions. We here at A+ Opinions always want to know what you guys think, so definitely let us know your thoughts on the episodes in the comments down below. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, but of course, guys, above all, don't forget to keep it A+, and we will talk to you all later. Goodbye.